What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 512 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's KB and Matt coming at you from Underground Studios. We got a whole lot to dive into tonight from the Birds, the Phils, the Sixers, and it is the return of Survivor. Season 44 premieres tonight at 8 o'clock, and I think Jeff Probst was taking a listen to us, Matt, because he's starting a podcast that will be a companion show of like behind the scenes things that goes live after every episode this season. So shout out to Jeff. But we're gonna dive into everything. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI right now. For the people watching live, we're live on Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. So go tap in. Follow us at Underground PHI on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It does go a long way for helping the show continue to grow. And we're, we got big things on deck for 2023. So you'll want to come along for the ride. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. That's where you get full video episodes, clips, every podcast on our network in full video form, all on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. We are currently at 389 subscribers. Let's get 11 more going into the month of March. Let's get to 400 and beyond this month here. But go subscribe, smash that like button, ring the bell icon, and comment down below your thoughts on everything we discuss on tonight's show. And big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen: Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland. What's going on, Matt?
Living the dream.
The Philadelphia Eagles are finally putting back together their coaching staff. Before we dive into this, it's brought to you by our amazing merch partners over at PHI Apparel Company. Guys, there's no doubt in our minds that when you are rocking your merch from PHI Apparel Company, whether it's their own original unique designs, your Underground Sports Philadelphia official merch, you're going to stand out in the crowd when you go out to your favorite sporting events, when you go out to the bar, wherever it may be. You're going to be the most talked about shirt, hoodie in the entire building. You guys can go to phiapparel.co, use code underground so they know you're coming from us. You get 10% off any and all merch orders. Get your Underground Sports Philadelphia merch. It's the most comfortable hoodie I own, hands down. And make sure when you get your merch, you tag us, tweet at us, let us see where you're wearing your merch. And it is the most effective and direct way to support everything we're doing. So go get your merch, phiapparel.co. Use code underground for 10% off any and all orders. Matt, the Eagles got their coaching search for an offensive and defensive coordinator situated relatively quick, and they took advice from us for the offensive coordinator position, as it will be Brian Johnson sliding into that role. Was the quarterback's coach last season, has worked with Jalen Hurts since he was in high school, and I felt like that was kind of the no-brainer option there. And then just yesterday, Sean Desai coming over from the Seattle Seahawks and was the defense. He was working with the defense for the Chicago Bears in 2021 when they had an all-world defense. And there was a tweet of a quote out there, pretty much saying they're going to have the players in place to make adjustments during the game. And man, is that a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, absolutely. It's both of them, I think, are interesting appointments. One is a little more rote, and I think that's what we expected. Desai is someone that I really have zero familiarity with, which is interesting. I know he's on the younger side, which is obviously a little bit exciting. Seattle, I think at times this year we're able to play good defense, and if he has something to do with that, then it's interesting to see how that translates to the Eagles. But yeah, it's I don't know. I hadn't really been familiar with Nick Sirianni before he was appointed to head coach, and guys like Gannon and Steichen, I don't think were really on the tips of many people's tongues. So it's not always necessarily about the big names that are out there. Sometimes it is these kind of developmental guys that you don't see behind the scenes that can actually bring you a lot of value.
Yeah, and why is it easy to kind of figure out that Desai was going to be potentially the guy? Well, he's a disciple of Vic Fangio, who was obviously working with the Eagles offense during Super Bowl week, and he got his first job in Philadelphia under Jim Mora with the USFL Stars in 1984. That's Fangio, and then before becoming the Broncos head coach in 2019, Fangio was obviously the Bears defensive coordinator from 2015 through 2018 when they had Khalil Mack and that star-studded defense, and Desai was a quality control assistant with the Bears during that period. So I mean, he's learned from one of the better defensive coordinators when they're solely focused on defense. And one thing, this is a quote here from Sirianni, said, "One thing that we definitely have now is what we had our first year going into it. We have a little bit of unknown. Now whoever we play our first game can go and watch some of Sean's stuff from Chicago or even some of the things from Seattle. But one thing that we have is some uncertainty, again, going into that first game where you hide some things in preseason football." And like I said, that quote, like when he was working with the Bears in 2021, the Bears were ranked in the top 10 in damn near every category defensively. So to bring in a guy of that caliber, Pete Carroll was very complimentary of him in his press conference at the Combine and kind of broke the news that he was, in fact, coming to the Eagles. So I think bringing in that new blood and kind of just a new voice for this defense that is just star-studded with talent, kind of like those Chicago Bears defenses were from 15 to 18, I think it's almost nothing but a positive.
Yeah, I think, when you have to make this decision kind of later as opposed to everyone else because of the circumstances to your season, it seems like a fine bet. We'll see how it pays off, but there's not a huge track record to go off of. These guys that are in like lower assistant positions, it's always challenging to tell just what they do, right? Like we're not behind the scenes. We're not in the rooms with these guys where they're doing all their planning and talking to the players. So maybe harder for us to get a read, maybe even like Seahawks or Bears fans, harder to get a read on his value. But you got to trust that this team is making the right hire because they got quite a few right in the last few years.
He's 39 years old. He also went to Temple from 2006 to 2008. So we saw what happened the last time we brought a Temple alum home, and that's Hassan Reddick. So good, there's a connection there as well. He was the associate head coach and defensive assistant for the Seattle Seahawks in 2022, and he was the Bears defensive coordinator overall in 2021. And in 2019 and 2020, he was their safeties coach. So hopefully that's a positive sign in bringing C.J. Gardner-Johnson back, who's been posting just all over social media, fun stuff. There was a great clip where that he posted on his TikTok of, getting to do what I love on Sundays, and it was him making big plays, and then it transpired to a clip of Hezbollah with his phone out with a banner that said Eagles fans, and then Hezbollah just like smiles at the camera while recording everything. And then quote tweeted an Elliott Shore Parks tweet when he was talking to Jonathan Gannon at the Combine, I think today or yesterday. ESP asked him what went wrong during the second half of the Super Bowl, and CJ has since deleted the tweet but said, "You didn't put us in a position to make plays." Kind of telling how much these players were like not truly on board with Gannon. And then just I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you did because it went mega viral, the clip of Gannon like meeting every single member of the Arizona Cardinals roster. Just very like strange optics for the social team to post that, but it seems like some players were not too fond of Gannon and were pretty stoked that he was gone.
Yeah, I would not appreciate if I had to have those first awkward interactions with like new coworkers, because we've all had that. Like someone new gets hired, and you got to like walk up and introduce yourself, and like I would really hate to have that recorded and then broadcasted to like millions of people. So
And just
I do
archive
empathize.
forever.
Yeah, I do empathize in that way because I just think that sucks. Like, and honestly, too, like, who's interested in that? Who's like,
Yeah.
oh yes, like I wanted to see this moment, this totally true and raw moment of him meeting Kyler Murray. Like, who cares? Like, I could not care less about that content. No offense to the content
Yeah.
creator, it's not an easy job, but it's a no for me.
Yeah. It's a weird one. And even so, it's like, I think Gannon has like one connection to a player there, and it's Zach Ertz. So like if you want to show that, fine. But like showing it was like a 2-minute long clip of just like him meeting every player. Some of the guys he like didn't even know like who they truly were, so it was very awkward. But the Eagles have their coordinators, and I think that's a huge positive sign as we get set for free agency right around the corner. To have those in place, I think is just a big weight off of Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni's shoulders to know who's going to be in the building, coaching the players that they're looking after. And Howie had a quote at the combine. Somebody asked him why the Eagles didn't extend guys during the season this year, which has kind of become a regular thing for the Eagles, to go out and sign guys that are ready to hit the free agent market, that they don't want to let them hit that area and just get them locked up during the season. Typically happens during the bye week. A lot of people thought, CJ Gardner-Johnson, James Bradbury, guys like that, we're going to get those extensions during the season. But Howie Roseman said, I think just obviously we took a little bit of a different tactic this year. Usually we like to sign guys early and sign guys during the season. And because of how hot we started, how well we did, and how many free agents we had, we thought it would create a different dynamic if we started to pick one guy and not another guy. We understood that could cost us in the end, but we felt like it was a worthwhile decision because of the opportunity to potentially win a championship, and unfortunately we came up short. Because just before and during 2021, the Eagles reached contract extensions for 4 of their 2018 draft class members: Dallas Goedert, Avonte Maddox, Jordan Mailata, and that's normally not. That's normally their way of going about things. We've seen it, I think over the past couple of seasons that's happened. And, when you have guys like CJ Gardner-Johnson that you traded for, who was kind of playing on a 1-year deal, and then you have guys who are, like a Brandon Graham, you usually see that those kind of guys get extended in some of their cap space turned into signing bonus to alleviate the cap. TJ Edwards is another guy who could potentially be gone this offseason now that he's going to hit the free agent market. But pretty interesting outlook on that, and a different take from Howie Roseman from what we've seen from him in the past, since he's kind of regained the reins of the general manager position.
Yeah, I mean, he talks a lot about it being a gamble too, and I think this team did kind of push a lot of chips in this year. At least, we saw them get really aggressive, right before the season, right, and go acquiring some guys, and even saw a little bit of that mid-season, of course, with some trades. So I think, that definitely tracks with sort of what we saw from this team. That doesn't feel necessarily just like smoke being blown. It felt like they were willing to kind of risk it a little bit, and I mean, you're maybe 2-3 minutes away from that bet paying off. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate, because even with Howie being someone known for navigating and circumnavigating the cap, Eagles don't have a lot of wiggle room this offseason. You obviously have a Jalen Hurts extension to be thinking about as well. That's more long-term, big picture stuff. But I am curious to see what they do. I think the draft is going to be really interesting for them, of course, because you have this possibility at 10 to get a player for the future, right, and something like that. Or again, we saw this team last year use that draft capital to go out and get an established player like AJ Brown. It's certainly within the possibility for the Eagles to do a lot of different things with that pick. I think they have a lot of avenues, so I'm curious to see that, and again, just how they manage this cap that they have.
Yeah, and I mean, as the true blue sickos that we are, having gone through the process, I think the city of Philadelphia is the most avid user of Tankathon.com. Not a sponsor, but shout out to them. Right now, they have the Eagles taking Devin Witherspoon from Illinois with that number 10 pick at defensive back, which I feel like has sort of become the go-to pick at number 10 if the Eagles do end up making that pick, simply because it seems like a foregone conclusion that James Bradbury is going to be gone. So you're going to have to replace that with, young talent there. I think there's going to be just a lot of interesting things, especially the information that came out about Jalen Carter today. That could shake up, the top end of the draft. What does that do with some of these teams who are still looking to get a quarterback? Where do the quarterbacks fall in this top 10? And then what players does that kind of leave for the Eagles? Does somebody, massive fall to them at 10 that it's like, wow, they're in our lap, similar to, Tyrese Maxey falling to the Sixers at 20. Does somebody fall that far simply because of, early round draft shakeup? Does somebody trade up to number 1 to, push the Bears somewhere else? I think being at 10 is such an interesting position for the Eagles right now, simply because there are a lot of teams in the top 10 where you look at, the Texans, you look at the Colts, you look at even Seattle, Detroit, the Raiders, the Falcons, and the Panthers, really. They all kind of need quarterbacks.
Yeah, there's a ton of teams, even someone like Tennessee, potentially, right? Could package to move up. The Jets, could get what? Like, there's a lot of teams in that range, and I think that's what's interesting about the draft is, I think the underrated part of it is that you have to be able to read the board from other people's perspectives and what do they want and what do they need and, what position does that put you in. I would be surprised if Chicago is picking at number 1. I think the Panthers are the sneaky team to maybe make that decision just because, I think you commit to Frank Reich and you commit to having a young quarterback that can grow and develop. That could be something very, very interesting. But, yeah, I think, you always have 1 or 2 guys, I think, that, and the Eagles benefited from this last year too, right, with Davis. You always have a few guys that sort of slip below, where you expect them to go, that maybe are best in their position, but just because there's some other, like, high value, high need guys that maybe go in the 5 or 6 range that fall, maybe to the Eagles at 10. So that's going to be the interesting part of this is, some of it is out of your control, but maybe you get a little lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the teams in the top 10, too. 4 of those teams have brand new head coaches, and then you throw the Bears in there. Their coach was kind of, just come in and figure it out, and then next year will be the year that we kind of start to evaluate you, I think, is the approach that the Bears took once their season started unfolding the way that it was. So, I mean, effectively, you have 5 relatively new head coaches in this top 10, and then you have Nick Sirianni, you have Arthur Smith with the Falcons, McDaniels in the Raiders, and then you have Dan Campbell in the Lions, and then Pete Carroll with the Seahawks. So a lot of, coaches trying to, make their mark with these picks, too, that are going to be pretty important because those players who those 4 teams with brand new head coaches, those players are going to be tied to those coaches almost and be like, oh, that's their first pick as a head coach of this team. Let's see how they pan out.
Yeah, especially when you consider, too, you got 3, 4 quarterbacks that are of big note, at this draft, right? Like you've got, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. You could put those guys in any order, and I think, and you might, hell, the Eagles could get Anthony Richardson, maybe even late in the first, because he has like the raw talent to be something really, really special, right? And if you're thinking very progressively, maybe you get absolutely insane. Who knows? But I am really looking forward to it. Where obviously draft is still like a month and a half away. The combine is this week, so it's always an exciting time just to see these guys start to put some tape together and get like the physical stuff, all those notes. But yeah, I think the Eagles are in a great position, and I think too, like we've been talking about with this top 10, there's quite a few teams that I think are looking to like really establish themselves here. Obviously, especially like 3 teams in the top 10, I think. Seattle, Detroit, and Philly all have picks, from trades that have kind of put themselves in a great position. Seattle was a playoff team. Detroit was a bubble team, right? Nearly making the playoffs. And the Eagles obviously went to the Super Bowl. So you have teams that had a really strong year last year, maybe even unexpectedly so, and now have an opportunity to really add to what is like a young core and try and like really develop and get a guy that, not many teams in those positions, not many teams that make the playoffs are picking 5th, in the draft. That is just an uncommon occurrence.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the Lions, if they if everything goes their way in this draft, they could end up winning that division, depending on what goes down with, the likes of Aaron Rodgers. We all expect the Vikings to kind of level out a little bit from what they were this year. They're not going to go 11-0 in the regular season and one-score games again. I think if you had a chance to take that bet, you'd bet against that. And then the Bears still kind of, trying to put some pieces together around Justin Fields and figure out their situation. But if all goes right for the Lions, they have more than an enough shot to go out and win that NFC North. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to kind of track. I think free agency starts next week, if I'm not mistaken. So there's going to be a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of rumors. There's going to be a ton of things to pay attention to. And who would have thought, last year Hassan Reddick coming to the Eagles was going to be a thing, and that turned out to be one of the better free agent signings for the Eagles over the last 5 years. So we'll see what happens with free agency as we go from the combine to spring training, Matt. And Andrew Painter made his Phillies debut today. It's brought to you by our amazing partners over at Kenwood Beer. It's the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia. They're going to be part of our live tailgate podcast series all baseball season long. And you guys can go to kenwoodbeer.com and use the all-new and improved Kenny tracker to see who's got Kenwood beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You got to be 21 or older to do so. Please drink responsibly. And you can also find Kenwood at your local liquor store if you're in the Philadelphia area, or Home Goods in the eastern Pennsylvania area. So go check that out. And, of course, kenwoodbeer.com. Use that Kenny tracker to see who's got it on tap, ready to go. Andrew Painter hitting 97, 98 miles an hour on the radar gun down in Clearwater, Matt. And the little sugar plum fairies of Phillies fandom are dancing in our heads.
Yeah, I think it was a great performance today. This was his first time too against more major league talent, and so seeing how he performed there was exciting. Some really nice highlights. A few shaky moments too from what I saw of some of the compilations on Twitter and all those. But I think he looks good. I think he's so far delivered on a lot of the expectation and the hype. It's very easy to forget that this guy too is a teenager, and these are really his first moments in this kind of spotlight. So I think it's totally reasonable that this guy's that could be on the opening day roster. I think you would see him pitching for the Phillies in April. I really think that's on the cards. Then that's not just a reaction off of today, one inning of pitching, right? But I think we've heard so much about him. It is not common to hear Phillies prospects be talked about in this way. It's just not common. Even someone like Bone, who's come on and really established himself, I don't think had this kind of hype. I think he was a well-known prospect, right? People were aware of him, but even then, I just feel we never got kind of the updates that we were getting. And I think too, Painter fills such a big need potentially that might be why the emphasis is on it a little bit more. And the Phillies prospects outside of pitching are not particularly strong, so. I'm really excited by him. I think there's a total possibility that this year he's pitching for the Phillies. I wouldn't be shocked again if he's making the opening day roster potentially, because we've talked about that fifth spot is not necessarily locked down by anyone. And I think you could see maybe even extend it to a 6-man rotation like we've talked about, and how important that could be, because not just with Nola and Wheeler and all the innings that they've had, but you're going to lose Ranger to the World Baseball Classic, right?
And Taijuan Walker.
And Taijuan Walker, you don't know what kind of, it's different for pitchers than it is for positional players, that kind of volume and that kind of workload. You want to manage that a little bit. So, yeah, I think it's totally possible when you factor that in. Maybe, in a different year where all those guys are there, maybe we see him in Triple or Double A, for 2 or 3 months, and then he's working his way up. We see him in June or July. But I think I'm starting to think that this guy is there on opening day with us.
Yeah, I mean, if he's on this roster opening day, it just goes to just such an added emphasis on the way that the Phillies scouting department has improved since Dave Dombrowski came in, the way that just the development staff down in the minors has improved over the last 3 years. And to think that we could have finally our own crown jewel, young starting pitcher in this rotation who has this big burly frame, And he's out there, like you said, he was pitching against major league talent. Like Carlos Correa and Max Kepler were in the lineup for the Twins today. He had Correa at an 0-2 count and then gets a dribbler of a infield hit to unfortunately spoil that at bat. But he got Correa in the first inning with a pair of 99-mile-an-hour fastballs to go up 0-2 on a guy who, yes, he cheated, but like that's a guy who's got pure hitting talent, and for a 19-year-old to be blowing 99 miles an hour right by him is quite impressive. And then he's throwing 91-mile-an-hour cutters on 2-2 pitches. Like, it's just impressive what his repertoire is, and this is also being caught by Garrett Stubbs, who is not a bad catcher by any means, but also imagine what it would be like Andrew Painter being caught by JT Realmuto. Like, the possibilities for his ultimate success and just him being the high caliber prospect that he is right now and turning into this crown jewel of a pitcher is almost endless.
Yeah, I think the physical capability too is what's impressive about him at his young age. It's just not often you see guys that young that are able to hang and get the velocity that he does. It looks so composed out there. Like, I think that's what's impressive to me, and I think what I'm looking forward to the most about seeing him, through the rest of spring training and start to dream a little bit about opening day. Because we're only 29 days away from opening day, which is we're within a month now, and that's surprising to me. And this is where March it starts to drag a little bit once you get to post March Madness hype. There's that little bit of week, where it's like, can we just wrap up spring training, So yeah, I am looking forward to, though, just kind of starting to really get excited because it starts to feel very real now once you start seeing the spring training games, and you kind of just want guys to be out there, and you want to be back at Citizens Bank.
Yeah, and I mean, Painter's fastball ranged from 96 to 99. His cutter was in the low 90s, and then his slider was in the low to mid 80s. Like, talk about range. And he said that the cutter is a pitch that he picked up this past offseason just to get something that's harder. He said the slider's kind of sweepy, so just looking for something else that looks like a fastball. So the fact that he's developing pitches and already throwing them in the low 90s, that's exactly what you want from your young, crown gem piece of a starting pitching prospect. He went 2 innings, gave up 3 hits, gave up 1 run, 1 strikeout on 29 pitches, threw 18 of those for strikes. And everybody after the game is just like, yeah, I think we're just starting to scratch the surface with him. Like, we haven't seen anything yet from him. And I think it was, Derek Hall said what's cool about him is that at 19, if you put me on a mound in a big league camp, you'd be able to see my anxiety. He gets up there and just does this thing. I told Correa at first base, do you know what I was doing at 19? Running morning runs at junior college trying to make a college team. That dude is on the cusp of being in the big leagues. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I again, doing it at 19. We just don't see that with the Phillies, especially. Maybe there's a few guys that have made debuts, at a younger age. I would say with pitching, it definitely feels, at least off the top of my head, just not unprecedented, but uncommon. It is uncommon to see someone at such a young age at least have the potential to be a potential starter for a major league team. There's still a lot of way to go, but I really can't think of that many teenage pitching. We've seen again some of the positional guys, right? Because you just know with Bryce Harper, right?
Yeah.
But I honestly I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Yeah. I know a few guys hit that 22, 23 mark. That I think that's even for very impressive looking guys. You see them there, but I just can't think of too many.
Let's see if I can pull up. So I think the last one was Julio Urias for the Dodgers.
Right.
Who debuted at 19. He was the 3rd teenage pitcher, and he debuted in 2016. He was the 3rd teenage pitcher in the past 20 years to make a debut. So it was Felix Hernandez in 2005, and then Dylan Bundy in 2012, who also debuted at the age of 19. And then prior to Felix Hernandez, the last 19-year-old to pitch in the majors was Todd Van Poppel of the 1991 Oakland Athletics, while Jose Rijo of the 1984 New York Yankees was the last player to debut at 18. So it's been very rare.
So I got from MLB.com. This is the like best teenage like breakout guys. Gary Nolan in the 60s for the Reds. This is pitching. Dwight Gooden for the Mets in 84. He was 19. He had a 5.5 WAR, which is just, holy shit.
Especially back then. That's crazy.
Yeah. Chief Bender of the Athletics in 1903. Yeah, we got some great old time. Wally Bunker of the Orioles in 1964 at 19. Smokey Joe Wood of the Red Sox in 1909 at age 19.
That just sounds like an ingredient in whiskey.
Smokey Joe Wood. And then, Felix Hernandez. There's a few. I don't know. You ever hear this Ty Cobb guy? Apparently debuted at 19.
Might have been pretty good.
Yeah, quite a few. A lot of the positional players, like Mickey Mantle, debuted at 19. I didn't realize that, to be honest. Manny Machado. Just thinking of names that Buddy Lewis, Ty Cobb, of course, Juan Soto. So we've had a few this decade that have made that debut, but yeah, it's definitely not as common for pitching, at least in recent times. So it's on the table for him.
Yeah, and speaking of our fun baseball name tradition, I got one today to roll across the timeline, and this is 2023. Shout out to at James Cigarettes on Twitter. One of those updates that you get from the MLB app. Grounded into a double play, 2 outs. Willie Joe Gary Jr.
I love it. They couldn't decide. It's like they couldn't decide what they wanted him to be. Really, I really like Willie, but Joe like meant a lot to me. Like he knew a Joe, and then like the mom's like dad was named Gary. It's like they just put it all together.
To which the tweet reads, "I don't believe that someone names their son Willie Joe Gary and then do it again."
Yeah, that's bizarre. Willie Joe Gary.
Willie Joe Gary Jr. He's got 4 first names.
Yeah, honestly. That's I gotta tell you, I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm in a stage of my life where I start to think about those things. Is it Willie Joe is his first name and then it's Gary Jr. or like because
it's
I
all
need
spaces.
I need to know how this works for like when you're filling out like any kind of like paperwork and you only have limited space for your names, or when you take like an important exam or something, or when you're filling out like to get a passport, you only have like 11 to 13 boxes to put your letters into. If you're beyond that, I mean, it's a hassle. It's a real pain. So I think you want to try and not subject your child to having like to deal around that, to be like the weird kid at the SATs that has to like has to ask what to do with the last name that is too many to fit in the bubbles.
Willie Joe Gary Jr. Born in the year 2000.
Christ. That just doesn't make you sick.
That's the strange part now with athletes is their post 1990s birth dates are going to be absolutely crushing. But yeah, I mean the way the Phillies are playing in spring training right now too is very, very promising. Like you see Zach Wheeler the other day hitting 97 on the radar gun. The bats are in full swing mode right now. Like the Phillies look good, and I know it's spring training, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But coming off a World Series run and a shortened off season, if you're a Phillies fan, you have to be at least somewhat excited about the production that you're seeing in spring training from some of the key guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is the shine from kind of the last moment you had with this team was, obviously disappointing, but I think, there's still a lot of like such goodwill left over from that playoff run. People are still really attached to this team in that kind of way. And there's a lot of excitement. There has been a ton of excitement in seasons past for the Phillies, I don't feel like that's necessarily new. Like this team has certainly like kept you engaged, in spring training the last 3 or 4 years. Because there's always been, a new free agent to kind of ogle over, even like a young guy like that you're hoping makes the team. I brought up Alec Boehm earlier. Like I know he's a big one for us in years past. You had Mickey Moniak last year, like we were kind of like watching and hoping. So
Bryson
I think
Stott.
Bryson Stott. Like there's always been someone to keep you engaged with, and this year feels no different. And yeah, I'm really excited to see them in the regular season, how this team looks.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the only negative right now is, and I find it so funny because it's the same people who, during the season last year, were complaining, vocally wanting this player to get traded, and now they're like, oh my God, where is he? Why isn't he playing? Oh my gosh, they're gonna let him leave in free agency. Rhys Hoskins got a knee operation in December to clean up his meniscus, so that's why he hadn't played to start off spring training. A report from Matt Gelb came out and said that the Phillies and Rhys Hoskins camp haven't started discussions about a contract extension yet. I don't know why that's not surprising. Like, the first base market going into next offseason is pretty bleak, so like Rhys, whether it's with the Phillies or another team, is going to get paid simply because he will be the best first baseman on the market if he hits the market. But I'm also of the note that like the Phillies don't have really a true in-house replacement for Rhys Hoskins. The people who say, oh, just move Castellanos or Schwarber to first base, that's, you think Rhys's defense at first base is bad? Wait till you see one of those guys at first base. Go watch Kyle Schwarber playing first base for the Red Sox and then report back. I think Rhys Hoskins is going to get re-signed. It may not be to a massive contract, and I feel like he's a guy that wants to be in Philadelphia. Like he's made this his home in a lot of aspects. I feel like the Phillies and Rhys will come to some sort of agreement throughout the season.
Yeah, I would be surprised to not see him back. I felt that way pretty much all through the offseason, all last year as well, that he's probably back with the team.
And, he's a Scott Boras guy. Bryce and Rhys are extremely close. I'm sure there's going to be some inner workings there to where Rhys Hoskins gets paid and will be with the Phillies for the foreseeable future. Because, like they don't have a first baseman to come up, and everybody talks about Derek Hall, too. Like, Derek Hall's a very solid player. He's not an everyday first baseman. He's very similar in a lot of aspects to Rhys Hoskins. I think you would much rather have Rhys out there, at first base. The Phillies, I saw Johnny Heller tweeted, I think the Phillies since 2020 are 51-14 in games Rhys Hoskins hits a home run. So, like, Rhys's power speaks for itself. When he goes on a hot streak, this team is riding high. And he's like a core leader of this team. Like he's one of the guys that's out in front of the camera, always getting interviewed. He's a vocal leader. So I would be shocked if Rhys Hoskins is not part of this team following 2023.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes a lot of sense. And yes, he had definitely some high profile mistakes in the playoffs last year. But I think people really oversell how easy it is, or whatever the oversell, undersell. I think people really expect that it's very easy to just like find guys in these positions all the time, and that it's just like I just don't know where you're getting the value that people believe in. Like, are there better first basemen out there than Rhys Hoskins at fielding? Sure, like but I just don't know that you're realistically going to replace him. I just don't know that makes sense. I don't know that the value of replacement is really that steep.
Yeah, and I think with the shift coming in, like the shift being banned, I think that's only going to help Rhys Hoskins become that much better of a player as well. Like, there's going to be fewer opportunities for some of these power hitters that the Phillies have to hit into the shift. I think it's going to help with Rhys's, defensive play quite a bit. So, I would be stunned if Rhys is not in a Phillies uniform for the foreseeable future. But Matt, the Union are off to a 1-0 start. another match upcoming this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, we talked about it leading into the season. The offense being together for a full year is going to pay dividends. Carranza off to a hot start, and Union looking to just continue rolling along the way that they do, and kind of be that gold standard team in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it wasn't their best performance in terms of the actual like play. Good scoreline though, 4-1 always feels nice. Some dubious penalties that they received. The handballs I think were pretty marginal at best, but sometimes that's like a little bit of a spinning wheel, and sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not. I think the crew probably feel a little unlucky in that regard, but Gazdag puts them away. We saw Torres get a debut and had a beautiful assist for a Carranza goal. And I think that should give you a lot of hope for this season, because we still saw those moments, those passages of play where the Union looked very, very good. They have a decent test this week against Inter Miami, who are just the Jekyll and Hyde of the MLS. Just go through these really interesting patches of form and then terribleness. So I am looking forward to that. But yeah, it's a great way to start. And I think, there was definitely some questions I think about this team. And, I think some of the, just how this team would kind of shape up mentally coming in the season. I think Jim Curtin coming, during his press conference and talking about there was an anonymous executives survey put out by The Athletic. And, one of the executives picked the Union to win MLS, but said, I'm picking that, but they're not even that good. They just kick the shit out of you. Curtin had some nice things to say about that. So I said that you need to have that kind of reputation around the league. I would disagree with, by the way, because they scored a massive amount of goals last season. This isn't just a low block team that loves to just, and they do, put in a good challenge every now and again. But I do think they have a little bit more finesse than they're given credit for. So I was really impressed with the Union again. They looked like a team that brought back a lot of starters too. I think that was the nice thing. The crew definitely had the better first half, but I think as the game wore along, you saw the Union sort of grow into it. And, I didn't see anything in this that has me concerned. It's one game, so, it's tough to say, but, it feels a lot of the same beats that we saw from last year.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, Inter Miami on Saturday, and then Tuesday they've got a round of 16 leg one for the CONCACAF Champions League against Alianza. So do the typical roster players play in the CONCACAF?
Yeah, so it's like just I'm trying to think of, I guess the closest thing is like in like college basketball where you have those kind of like invitationals, that's like the closest thing. It's just like it's a tournament outside of the league that is important, like winning, and advancing in the CONCACAF Champions League would be a big thing for the Union, and it's definitely a target for them. That is going to be the challenge of this season is, keeping everyone rotated and healthy. This team did definitely get a nice boost with health last season. They really didn't struggle all that much with a lot of starters. So that would be really nice to have that the kind of fortune again. It's unlikely that you do. Striker is a potential concern, with depth, because a two-man striker system is not very common anymore. It used to be a much more frequent thing in the sport, but tactically it's kind of moved out of vogue for the most part. So most teams already don't carry 3-4 capable strikers. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they manage those minutes and keep those guys rotated. I think they've tried to address that a little bit with signing someone like Torres, right? And Gazdag can be a little more free floating. But this team isn't really like the tactical flexibility is going to be interesting to see what this team is doing, because I think they're going to have to rely on some different things. I think they're always going to have their bread and butter as long as everyone's healthy and they keep these guys on the roster of that 4-4-2. Which we've seen them just line up with so much, and that's been the most devastating way to play. I think plays to a lot of their strengths. So I am curious to see, how the season progresses with that in mind. And, I'd like to see them, make a run in the U.S. Open Cup too, right? Like that's something I think this team, they've really pushed the chips in similar, to the Eagles, right? Where, they brought a lot of guys back. I think they've really had to fend off for quite a few of these signatures. They still might have to again in the summer. And I think, this team has it in mind that they can win some silverware this season.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens this weekend with the Union as they continue to push on and try to go reverse hashtag the run of the Philadelphia Phillies from '07 to 11. But a team that is kind of down on their laurels and no real hope outside of maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers. It's brought to you by our awesome energy drink sponsor and partner, Dubby Energy. Guys, Dubby has set out to go to war on big energy and clean up the energy drink game. They have 0 calories, 0 sugars, 0 maltodextrin fillers in their formula, as well as no artificial colors or dyes, and they've got that patented neurofactor in their recipe to help improve brain cognitiveness and awareness by 143%. I'm currently sipping on the Beach and Peach flavor, which is white peach and mango, and they're simply the best in the game. Their customer service is top notch. They currently have pretty much everything on pre-order right now, that they are working on restocking everything. But if you place an order for a pre-order, you'll be first in line to receive your product when it is back in stock. So go to dubby.gg and use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any and all orders, and go to war on big energy. That's code UNDERGROUND for 10% off when you shop at dubby.gg. Matt, the Sixers are not in a good place right now. The rumors about James Harden leaving continue to swirl around, going back to Houston. You have Joel Embiid saying, the ending of that Celtics game was just the story of his life. And I just don't know when the being
when the
okay
pain
with
stops. Never.
Like, the being okay with just the complacency that this organization has is mind-boggling. And it starts from the top down. I brought it up on the most recent episode that I recorded on Monday when I got back from Virginia from the PLL Championship Series. Like, every other team in this city that you look at, whether it's the Eagles, the Phillies, the Union, even the Philadelphia Wings, they have, from the top down, from ownership to the front office, to the head coach, to the coaching staff, to the players, they have guys in place and front office people in place and ownership in place that want to win and have that desire to do whatever it takes to win. The Sixers just simply don't have that from the ownership group. The front office, it seems like, is just like fallen on deaf ears. And we all know how we feel about Doc Rivers. You have players on the court who want to win, and it's not all the players per se, but you know the desire and the want that Joel Embiid has, the desire and the want that Tyrese Maxey has, even to an extent Tobias Harris wants to win in this city. But it's just the disconnect between the higher ups to down on the court with the Sixers is just mind-boggling bad.
I don't know what it is about this team. I don't know why every year has to have some plague attached to it. I don't get it. I think Harden has been good here. I don't understand the appeal of going back to Houston at all. I don't understand why it's appealing for Houston either. I just don't think he matches with the timeline. They're already a guard heavy team. If you look at the top of this draft too, outside of Wemby, you are looking at potentially adding another guard or another wing, which is going to be complicated with Jabari Smith. I don't know how adding James Harden to this mix makes a lot of sense for them. Some of the buzz around this, and this has been going on all season long too. This is not new, but it's just started to get kind of getting re-picked up, and some more notable guys are picking it up and talking about it. But part of it too is apparently he liked the lifestyle and liked that he was kind of able to fly wherever, and the onus wasn't on him as much to be at every workout, and he could take these private planes and all these extra trips and stuff. I don't know. I don't get it. He has honestly not had in my mind really any issues with professionalism, anything like that. Honestly, he's been a great player here. I wish he would stay. I think the Sixers are in a lot of trouble if he leaves. I do not see how this makes sense. So that's why it's going to happen. I didn't understand why we were letting Jimmy Butler walk. Didn't understand what he was seeing in Miami, any of that. And it blew up in our face. So I would be really really frustrated if we do lose James Harden, and I don't understand the appeal. Houston sucks, like and I I don't see it, and these last two games too have been really heartbreaking in so many ways. That Celtics game was just like being ripped, and I mean we're getting swept by them if we play them in the playoffs.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that is I think what was really challenging about all this is you have these good pieces and you have a great player in Embiid, but it doesn't feel like you have a great team. It doesn't feel like a team that's actually. I think the Sixers are just in a different tier than the Celtics and Bucks. I think those two are just ahead of them, and I think the Celtics are kind of in their own tier in the East. Bucks are in a tier of their own, just below the Celtics, and I don't know. You put like the Sixers, Cavs, Heat in like a team. Like I don't think we're at that level. Like we could potentially. Like who knows? But I really don't think we beat the Celtics in a 7-game series. I could see us maybe getting past the Bucks, but and it feels like obviously you're going to have to play Boston. We could be playing Boston in the second round, and you have another just nightmare matchup. It's very very frustrating to watch again, and you have Doc Rivers, and it's hard to believe in him as a coach. It's hard to believe in this organization because of the guys you let walk out of the door the last few years. You see Isaiah Joe like doing well, and that's been I think a thorn in our side all year. But just in general, I think this team
Charles
has had
Bassey.
kind of I mean you've just had kind of a brain like dump, a lot of times. Like you just had a lot of guys walk out the door that could probably be useful to you now, and that's not just in the last year. That's over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. It feels like some of the decision making has been really strange. So
It feels like very similar to when we compared the Phillies to being like the Angels East when they brought in Clentak, brought in McPhail, and it was just like, what the fuck are we doing? The more and more you look at it, it's like the Sixers have become like Clippers East. Because what have the Clippers done to really justify any of the moves that they've made? They go out and get the big superstar names, and they just continue to fall flat. And this is like the year for the Clippers to like prove that they can get over the hump, and who knows if they do, but it just feels like the front office has failed Joel Embiid and the rest of this team. Doc Rivers has failed this team. The ownership group has failed this team. And it's not just this year. It just continues and continues and continues. And who knows when it changes. We'll see. But everybody put your seatbelts on and get ready for a second-round exit, because that's where it seems this team is heading once again.
No, it's going to be the first round exit. We're gonna somehow drop to the 7th or something and get swept by the Bucks. I don't know.
Maybe then Doc will lose his job.
I have felt it like the true malaise of this team all season. It's been very hard for me to I've been watching, but it's been very hard for me to really love this team in any way. Like outside of Embiid, even Maxey, has been relegated to this bench role, and it's just not looked, especially in the last 2 months, has not looked his usual self. And that's been off of the PJ Tucker deal, which was contentious at the time, and you get him with the hopes that he's like a team, a player that kind of puts you into that championship contending caliber. I'm not sure that he has. And again, James Harden wants to leave a team that is hoping to win a championship for a team that is in the basement of the NBA right now. That has been the Sixers' experience for the last few years. Really summed up. For Embiid summing it up against the Boston game, sure. For as a Sixers fan, I think that is more accurate to James Harden wanting to leave us for the doldrums of the NBA.
It sucks. But what doesn't suck is that Survivor is back. It's our Buffs and Snuffs Survivor Season 44 preview, as Episode 1 airs in just a few minutes. It's brought to you by our friends over at Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. Guys, go get your sunglasses, your blue light glasses, everything in between that they've got at TomahawkShades.com. They've got prescription lenses available. Oh, and a former Survivor, all-star, fan favorite, Tyson Apostle. He's a Tomahawk Shades ambassador just like us. So go to TomahawkShades.com. Use promo code USP at checkout for 25% off your order at TomahawkShades.com. That's code USP for 25% off at TomahawkShades.com. Matt, we always pick our eventual hope for a winner. Over the last 3 seasons, we've fallen just shy, but we've at least gotten to the jury. this season, quite another, great looking cast across the board for who could be a potential winner. Um, who is standing out to you for potential pod winner?
So, I hit the books real hard today, and because we obviously play Fantasy Survivor, so yeah, I really had to understand who I'm looking at. There are two names that I would like to nominate it as contention for winner of Survivor. This one is just going by my method, our tried and true. Just pick someone who is a firefighter / from the Northeast of the United States. Danny Massa. He's a firefighter. I just got it. That's
Yep.
just that has worked historically well. I think if you're a firefighter, your chances of making like the final four are I no joke. I think like 60%. Like I really think that like when you're a firefighter, there's just something about it. There's also another person that I got a good vibe from. That's Helen Lee. That's again, you're going off of a picture and a very brief like caption about this person. She said she wants to play like Erica, who won in season 41, sort of an under the radar threat. And I also love in her picture she has this very interesting tank top situation where it's like spaghetti strap on one side, like full more shoulder strap on the other. I love that. I love that she's I don't know, she's thinking outside the box when it comes to her tops that she's bringing to Survivor. So those are the two names that I would like to nominate as potential winners. Danny's, of course, I think going to be our pick because of the firefighter angle. But you know what? I'm going. The last few seasons, it's been someone that I did not expect to win has won. So I got to just like I got to mix it up somehow.
I also have Danny on my list, and then I went the same route as you when I was doing my homework today. My kind of like wild card, not expected to win. I don't know why, but Claire Raffson spoke to me.
See, because and we got to talk to someone at CBS when I get in the damn portal back up because I'm having to scroll to find.
No free ads, but Entertainment Weekly has a great portal system right now.
Okay, Claire, I'm gonna be honest. I again, this is all just based off the picture. I think Claire was one of my last picks on fantasy. Just something about being a tech investor / venture capitalist. I was like, that could really go either way for me. Those people can be very engaging, but they could also be very self-involved, and I think that could rub people the wrong way. Who knows? It is so hard to predict, as we have learned.
I liked her previous player identification, who she identifies with. It's a combination. She said, I identify most with Michelle. I love her social game and how she used people's perceptions of her against them. I think I'll play most like Natalie Anderson in Blood versus Water. She doesn't take bullshit from anyone and knew how to make a move when she had to.
And fair. I'm just not sure. She is from New York, so she fits the Northeast, section of our of our rubric on being a Survivor winner. So that's good. But yeah, I have a.
I like that we have our wild card pick, and we both have that consensus about Danny.
I mean, come on. It's just, again, if you're a firefighter and you're going on the show, I have to pick you. I do. And he's from New York. Come on. What am I supposed to do?
The maths. So first time we'll have wild card picks for the pod, but our overall pick to win this season, which is also going with, I was talking to Sarah earlier when she came over, and I said, since Survivor has come back, it's been female winner, and then last season with Gabler, male winner. Something tells me it might continue like that trend a little bit for the first four, where it just goes 2-2. So I was leaning more towards a male winner for this season.
It's possible. I think the last few seasons have shown us again that even within the season, when you see the people play and start to get a good idea, it can be very hard to read the situation. And it just feels like, we're not always privy to all the conversations, all the stuff out there.
Especially now where they cut it up even more, and then you see it next week.
I'm trying my hardest for this season to just not rule anyone out. There have been so many times where I felt like there's just no way this person wins, and then they win, and then I'm like, well, that's my own fault.
Feels like the last 3 years, the last 3 seasons, it's been that way.
I gotta keep the most open mind possible. That is my goal this year.
So we're gonna go catch Survivor Season 44. Make sure you guys follow at Buffs and Snuffs on Twitter. We'll be keeping up to date much more frequently this season with Survivor over there. And make sure you follow us on the socials at Underground PHI, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/Underground Sports PHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It does help the show continue to grow. On your 5-star Apple Podcast reviews, let us know who you think is going to win Survivor Season 44. We will read them on the show if you leave them. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. That's where you get full video episodes of every single podcast on our network. You get shorts, live streams, original content. It's all there. Leave a comment down below who you think is going to win Survivor Season 44 as well. Big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen. Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland, and our amazing merch partners, PHI Apparel Company. Go to phiapparel.co. Use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any and all orders. And this has been episode number 512 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. For Matt, I'm KB. Till next time, we are signing off. Peace.